Hi everyone, it's Kate. Welcome back to Maritime Ceramics. Today we are going to be doing a review of Winter Wood. This is one of the Mayco glazes and it's one of their more popular glazes. I bought it a while ago and I think I bought it to use with green tea, which is a super popular combo. I'm not going to be doing that one today because you can find a million examples of it online, but I really haven't been using it. So today I'm going to do a bunch of combinations with winter wood. They're all going to be on white clay because winter wood does not like red clays. It does a lot of blistering and nasty stuff. And I'm not doing one all on its own because that's a lot of kind of splotchy brown and I just personally don't like it on its own. So what are we going to combine it with? We are going to combine it with Amaco's Serpentine Green, which is one of their newest glazes. And I have a full review on this one on the channel. Actually, I've got reviews on most of these. Nori Green, which is one that I bought recently. I did a review on it, and I wasn't quite able to find a lot of combinations that I super loved, but I'm curious to see what it does with winter wood. Mayco's Rose Quartz. This was actually one of the first glaze reviews that I did. I think it could be quite pretty. The pink with that kind of matte wood look. We'll see. And then Mayco's Celadon Bloom. And this one I picked because I looked on their website and they have a whole bunch of pictures of combinations, and the Celadon Bloom and Winterwood looked really interesting. So I'm really curious to see how this one turns out, and I've got some high hopes. So hopefully I'm not disappointed. Winterwood is dinnerware safe, which is interesting because it's kind of a rough texture, and usually what you hear is that, you know, you want that shiny, smooth texture for dinnerware. I'm not sure I would use it on the inside of a cup. These are all planters. These are little succulent planters. So if you watched my Seaweed review, you know that I'm preparing for some flower-related festivals that are coming up, and so I have a ton of these little succulent planters to glaze, which is a fun way to test glazes. So let's get into it. We will do Winterwood times 3, and then let's say 2 coats of the Serpentine Green. I'm just guessing here, guys. I really don't know. Winterwood times, let's try 2 coats on this one just to see what Winterwood looks like with 2 coats. And then Nori Green times 3. And this guy, Winterwood times 3, and Rose Quartz. We'll do 3 coats of that as well. I'm only going to do 2 coats of each of these guys because they both have crystals, and I'm a little worried about the running situation. Anything that has crystals in it does seem to run in combination with other glazes, so I'm going to have just Winterwood on the bottom of all of these, and then the layering will be at the top, just to hopefully keep it from running off the pot. The interesting thing about these glazes from Mayco that have kind of the crystals in them is that they tell you what the base glaze is. The base glaze for this one is alabaster. And what that means is a couple of things. One, you know that if the base glaze doesn't do well on, for example, a red clay, and I have not used alabaster, but the indications from what I've read online are that it does not like red clay. Certainly that has been my experience with Winterwood. So that gives you an idea without testing it, you know, of what you might expect. But it also lets you, if you don't like this many chunks, you could buy a pint of alabaster and mix them together and you would get 50% of the chunks, which I think is a neat idea because this is a lot of chunks. So I don't know, we'll see. You can see that I have used some of this, but I don't remember on what. No memory of that. I know I did 1 mug with the green tea and it ran right off the mug. Very pretty though. And for all of these, I think I'll do the non-Winterwood glaze on the inside. It's just easier because I'll be glazing the rim at the same time, so. If you're having trouble getting the crystals to spread evenly, one trick is to pour some of the glaze out onto a plate, because it just lets you kind of see where the crystals are and pick them up a little more evenly. I just kind of put my brush down in the bottom and swirl it around. And these guys, I will be using little pieces of wadding to elevate them off of the cookie, because I am kind of going basically down to the foot, and there's probably going to be running, so. And wadding is, memory serves, it's 50% EPK and 50% alumna with a little bit of water, just enough to make it kind of a crumbly dough type consistency. And I have a little yogurt container of it out by the kiln, and I use it for all sorts of stuff. I use it to separate lids from the bottom of pots, just to give a little extra insurance against them fusing together. I use it, oops. I'll use it on the bottom of stuff like this. I'll roll up a little ball of it and do 3 of them underneath to kind of lift it up off of the cookie, so that if the glaze runs, it doesn't stick the cookie to the pot itself. Okay, I'm just second guessing myself. I think I actually want the winter wood all the way up to the top on this one. So I'm going to add that while I do the 3rd coat on these 2 guys. One thing about layering glazes over these crystal glazes, and by crystal I just mean the chunks that are in the glazes, is that you have to almost dab your top glaze on. Otherwise you end up knocking the little crystals off. And then even just picking them up and putting them back down again, they do tend to come off. So just something to be aware of, that you have to be a little extra careful when you're using these guys. The glazing is all done, and let's have a peek at what we are putting into the kiln. So we have 2 coats of winter wood with 2 coats of Celadon bloom over top, and I've gone all the way to the bottom with both of those, so it's a complete overlap. Then we have 3 coats of winter wood and 2 coats of Amaco Serpentine green, and the serpentine's gone halfway down. 2 coats of winter wood and 3 coats of Spectrum's Nori Green. I'm really interested to see what happens with this one. And we've got, it's overlapped here. This is just Nori Green, and this obviously is just winter wood. And then rose quartz, which I've just finished. So on the bottom of this one, we have 3 coats of winter wood. And then on the top and inside, we have 3 coats of Mayco's rose quartz. So we're gonna pop all these in the kiln and see what they look like. Okay, results are out of the kiln for our winter wood test tiles. And before I jump into the results, now's a great time to hit the like button if you're enjoying this video and to subscribe if you haven't already. Next week's video is going to be a little bit of a different one. If you want to hear more about that, go check out the Seaweed glaze review that I posted last week, because I talk a little bit about what's coming up and how that's going to be different from my usual glaze reviews. Okay, let's jump in. Winter wood. I'm going to start with the example that has Nori Green on the top. And I'll do that because this, I think, has the best example of what winter wood looks like on its own. So if you are interested in seeing that, this is just winter wood down here. The Nori Green did not cover all of the winter wood. And it's a very matte glaze. It feels, I shouldn't say matte, it's more of a satin, really. It feels quite smooth. What's really interesting, and I mentioned this earlier, but this glaze is considered dinnerware safe, which is unusual for something that is not glossy. And typically the reason, as I understand it, that the not glossy glazes are not used as much for dinnerware is because they will mark up with cutlery more easily. Anyway, so just not good or bad, just interesting. So this is winter wood on its own. It has kind of a golden hue to it. It's definitely not a stark white. And then it has these spots of brown throughout. And again, if you wanted less of the spots, you could mix it with some alabaster, which is the base, that's this creamy color, and kind of dilute the crystals a little bit so you would get less. So just an aesthetic preference. It definitely does look like Nori with winter wood. You can see the very distinct separate glazes here. Where it overlapped, it's gone kind of a darker green and then this kind of drippy matte bit. So hopefully you can see on screen that transition between the glossy and the matte. So I'm not seeing any pinholes on this or blisters or anything of that sort. So in that respect, it has performed well. This was on, I think, porcelain. It was probably reclaim. Inside, just the Nori Green, and I do have a separate review on Nori Green, so I won't get too much into that one, but there you have it, Nori Green and winter wood, a very earthy kind of a combination. And I've included this one. This was in the Seaweed review that I did last week, but just to remind you of what winter wood and seaweed looked like, this is it. However, I also dug this up, and this, you can see, was obviously a failure. It was fired at the community studio back when I was kind of just getting started. So I have no idea what firing temperature this got to, but based on the results, I'm gonna say it was a higher firing temperature than this. This is what I was expecting from this seaweed and winter wood combo. But it's not what I got. So this is, I don't know if it's going to come across on screen, but it's quite metallic. It's very, very cool. So I'm thinking this got hotter than this. So if you're interested in this particular combo, definitely test it out at different firing temperatures to see what happens. And definitely don't use it on the outside of a bowl. Now, back to the stuff that we glazed on screen, but keeping with the running like a toddler with chocolate theme, we have rose quartz and winter wood. Rose quartz completely took over the winter wood. Like, you can see little bits of what it looks like there, but not much. And this is getting a little kind of pinholey and blistery down here. As you can see, it ran here. This is a piece of the wadding that I used to prop it up on, but the rose quartz ran right through and stuck the wadding to the bottom. Overall, this is not a great piece. The outside is kind of unremarkable. They have definitely melded together. This kind of soft pink with speckles of the darker pink in the middle is interesting. Like, this middle section is quite interesting. But rose quartz did that thing that it does. It's very unpredictable. And this example of it is not spectacular. It's very matte. These were, if memory serves, slow cooled. And so it's completely matte on the inside. It's actually kind of rough on the bottom. It's not a great pot. So I don't know, I probably will just chuck it. I don't know if I'll even bother trying to resuscitate it. I suppose since it is a planter, it doesn't really matter that it's all matte inside. But if you're going to use rose quartz and winter wood together, be aware that it is a runner, and I was relying on the winter wood to stop it here, because usually a matte glaze will do that, like we saw here. But in this case, the rose quartz just overpowered the winter wood. Okay, and then we have these two guys, which are interesting because they're quite similar in a lot of ways, but there are some definite differences. So let's look at this one first. This is winter wood with Celadon bloom over top. And if you'll remember, I completely overlapped these two. I don't know why I'm reminding you of things that you literally just saw. I think it's because I filmed that last week, and so I've forgotten. Anyway, these two were completely overlapped. Celadon bloom on the inside, which is kind of doing its Celadon bloom thing. Let me know down in the comments if you'd be interested in seeing a full review on Celadon bloom, because I don't think that I've done that one. And it could be fun to try it with a bunch of different glazes and do some layering. Anyway, let me know in the comments. I quite enjoy this on the outside. I think it's because there's some shiny bits and some matte bits, and that combo I just find really interesting. I think it looks like there's a lot happening in this glaze. Very matte, quite rough. So I'm not sure that it would be great for dinnerware. Maybe the outside of a mug. I don't know, you'd have to test it and see how it holds up. But very interesting, the way these two glazes have melded together. What's especially interesting is that even though these were both the stoneware glazes that have the crystals in them, and I expected it to run a lot, it really didn't. It kind of stopped where I stopped doing the glazing. So yeah, that's interesting. So he's quite cute. I'm pleased with this one. And then this was winter wood with the Serpentine green. So on the inside, you'll see Serpentine green is doing its thing. It's quite matte. Again, this was a slow cool. No blisters here though, which I appreciate because Serpentine green is hit or miss, which is a shame because I quite like it. I like, again, it's that combination of matte and shiny, and I really like that. And it does have these kind of patches of shininess that have come through. Now this is an interesting result. I think this combo here where it overlapped is probably the most interesting of all of the testers that I did, except for this one. I mean, they're very similar in that way, in that it kind of melded together. But I will say that, not next week's video, because next week is going to be the pottery project, but the week after that, I have a review coming out, and I use Serpentine green with a different glaze, and it is one of my favorite combos that I have done so far. So stay tuned for that. Again, I don't see really any blisters or pinholes on the winter wood. So functionally, these two worked well together, and it just kind of comes down to aesthetics. I love this look where the shininess kind of breaks through the matte. That makes me very happy. Okay, so that's it for the ones that we glazed on screen, but I did dig into the archives, if you will, by which I mean all of the failed pots that I use for various purposes. And I dug up this example. This one ran a bunch. I think there was something else wrong with it as well. I've actually been using it to scoop, I think, glaze, like to pour glaze into the inside of other things. I was using it as a mug for a while and it worked fine. I just now have too many mugs that are failed, but I really like, and so I have kept. So, you know, I had to edit the collection. This is winter wood with green tea over it. And this, I apologize, my neighbor's dog is barking. Winter wood and green tea. I don't remember how many coats of each I did. This definitely fired too hot. If memory serves, I think it went to a cone 7 because it was when I got my L&L plug and fire kiln, I haven't quite figured it out yet. But you can kind of see here a little hint of what it might look like if you fired it a little bit cooler. And I have seen, the reason I didn't do this one on screen again is because there are just so many examples of green tea and winter wood together. It's a really common combo, and for good reason. It's quite pretty usually. This is not so much, but if you overfire it, this is what happens. And these delicious little runs here, like I do completely understand why so many people use this combo. This did craze. It may or may not craze on your clay. That's a very clay specific thing that happens, but just FYI, that combo did craze. With very few exceptions, a lot of matte here. So if you don't enjoy a matte glaze, winter wood is probably not the glaze for you. And some really interesting stuff that happened on a few of these. So I'm pleased that I did this test because I think I can see applications for some of these combinations in my work and with my palette. And hopefully what I've done here today has given you some ideas of things to do or not do. If you do give this a try, I would love to hear about it. I'd love to hear how you make out with it. I think, I'm not sure, but I think you can post photos to my community. I will try and dig that up, and if I can figure it out, I'll put some directions down in the description or in the comments, because I would love to see some of the projects that you do with these glaze combos and how they've worked out for you or not. I love seeing failures too. We all do, because we all have them, right? We need to commiserate. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today, and I will see you next time. Happy potting!